what do we do when that day comes where we have to make decisions about care for our elderly parents? Roman Catholic priest Monsignor Ronald Royer chose to lovingly take care of his mother for 12 years before she passed away from Alzheimer's disease at 101 years of age. We will hear about some of his experiences at that time and some interesting stories about his unusual mother.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
My guest, Monsignor Ronald Royer, is a semi-retired parish priest. He has had a long-time love for astronomy. He's an avid eclipse chaser traveling the world and is internationally known for his astrophotography. Welcome, Monsignor.
I'm very glad to be here.
Well, you visited us quite a few years ago when you came to talk with us about the bristlecone pine trees, those ancient trees. And you also told us about lectures that you conduct up in that region about some meteor showers. Could you tell us just briefly about that?
Yes, for several years, every August, the middle of August, when we had the Perseid meteor shower, I would go up and give the ranger talk.
You've built your own home now, and you have a very large telescope and observatory in your backyard. Tell us about that.
I built several telescopes, starting when I was a teenager, when I joined the Los Angeles Astronomical Society. And then eventually I was given a dome, a telescope dome, from the people at Caltech who were doing some work for the Apollo project on infrared studies up in the White Mountain Research Area. And they were measuring the cooling rate of the lunar surface to see how deep into the surface the astronauts would go. It was a big concern at the time. After they were finished with that, they found that the area there was too moist, even though it was in the rain shadow of the Sierra Nevadas. So the next step that they went to was to develop the IRIS satellite. They went to satellites for this type of infrared and ultraviolet research, which has worked out better. I got the dome.
You're a real California boy. Tell us about your early studies and so forth.
I was born in Santa Monica, and we moved quite a bit. When Pearl Harbor occurred, we moved down into the Long Beach area and San Pedro area.
So you had all your education down there, your seminary training, and your entire career was in Southern California, was it not?
That's correct, yes.
And I think you served 26 years in your last parish.
That's correct,
and
in Lakewood.
were honored with the title of Monsignor.
That's correct.
At that time. And you had quite a few interesting things happen throughout those years. There was one about the woman who was in the car wreck on the scaffold.
Yes, that was in Pico Rivera too. Over in Whittier, they were building widening a bridge that went across the railroad tracks that went between Pico Rivera and over into Whittier. And the chief fire captain, he was one of our parishioners, so he calls me in the morning. I was on duty, and he says, come on over here and we have an incident. So we get over there, and there's this scaffold, and there's a car impaled in the scaffold up above. The car had gone off in the night off of the bridge and into the scaffolding, and it was impaled there, and the fact that they had already poured some of the concrete kept it from collapsing. And all the bystanders and everyone said, well, whoever was in that car couldn't have survived. It was upside down, it was impaled there. And he went up, and he said, there's a lady trapped there, but she's fully conscious. Why don't you come up and give her the last rites? And I said, me? I'm going all the way up there? He says, of course. So I did. There were the two of us up there.
So
This
you
thing
did.
is shaking and
Oh
everything.
my
And we
goodness.
were talking to her. I was giving her the last rites, but I actually didn't really need to give her. We were consoling her. Eventually, they got her out, and she did survive. She just at night she just got confused on the traffic delineators and went off upside down. And she said the scariest thing was she was honking her horn and everything, but nobody could hear her, and nobody
Oh.
could see her because it was below the
My goodness.
level of the road. And she didn't know where she was, but she heard a train coming. And she said,
my
oh, I must be
goodness.
upside down on the track. I'm going to get run over. And that made the national news.
And did they mention
Every
you
once in a
then,
while,
or-
I'd go by an insurance office, and they'd have a picture of this car impaled.
But did they mention you, that you were up there with
Oh
her?
yes, they
Oh,
did.
they-
Yeah, the Catholic priest and the fire marshal. Yeah, he was a real gutsy guy.
Where were you when you saw May, when you were friends
Mae
with
West.
Mae West?
Well, when I
Yeah.
was at Azusa, the pastor was Father Al Duggan, and his cousin was Spencer Tracy, and Al Duggan, in his first assignment in Hollywood, would see this lady come in. This was back in the Depression, the Great Depression in the 30s. And she would light a candle. And every day she would do this. So he asked her one time, what are you praying for? And she says, well, you know, I'm not a Catholic, but I'm working on a movie for Paramount Studios. And if this movie doesn't succeed financially, they're going bankrupt. And we're just praying that it will succeed. Well, it turned out that was Mae West.
Oh.
And
Okay.
she would call every once in a while. I never met her in person, but she'd call, and she said, this is the Ravenswood calling. That was where she lived. She owned that big apartment building, which is still there in Hollywood. And she said, this was the Ravenswood calling, and where's Father Duggan? And I'd say, well, he's out now. Well, you're kidding me. I know he's there. I know he's hiding there somewhere. I said, no, he's really out. I never used her name, but I knew who it was.
Oh.
Yeah. And he got along very well with her. In fact, she used to call in and say, well, come up and see me sometime. And he did. Yeah.
He did.
He did, yeah. So she actually, what I admired about Mae West is she was one of those persons who survived. Her celebrity status never got to her head. She survived, and Father Duggan said, why don't you become a Catholic? She said, well, I don't want to embarrass the church. But actually, on her deathbed, she did. Yeah,
She did.
Yeah.
Well, you've come from a really interesting family. Your mother had a lot of interesting things going on in her youth, as well as right up to the
day
last.
she
And
died, yes,
one thing that you might want to tell about, since she grew up in the Depression,
That's correct.
is the dance marathon. That's 5-day a night dance
Actually, it
marathon.
was. I think that was just before the Depression. She was born in 1910. That was she was 16 years old, and these marathons were being promoted. You know, back in the 20s, everything was going on. It was crazy, and so she was looking for a partner, and his name was Horsey. They call him Horsey Dunn. And they never met before, and they danced 6 days and 6 nights, and ended up with 2 couples that were left, and they were just about dead on their feet. And the police stopped it and hospitalized them all. And then they shared the 4 of them shared a $2,000 prize. And when my mom woke up, there was a bouquet of roses there at their bedside. And she used to always say, you know, it was from an Ed Royer, whom she had met casually a couple times before. And she says, you know, that's the first and the last time I ever received any flowers from your dad.
She was an athlete, wasn't she?
From the day one. Mm-hmm.
She had trophies for track and
Golf.
golf trophies,
The
and
house
then
would get full of these trophies.
and then in her younger days, when you were smaller,
Yes.
she did work out at Muscle Beach
At
down
Muscle
in
Beach,
Venice,
south of
wasn't
the pier,
some-
Santa Monica Pier, yes.
with the stuntmen doing acrobatics and things
Yes,
like
the
that.
stuntmen couldn't afford the gyms, So they were doing acrobatics, but with no rings or anything like that. It was all physical, you know, like Cirque du Soleil does now, you know. And I thought they were crazy. But during the Depression, it cost us nothing to go down to the beach. They would always try to get me on the top of these pyramids, these human pyramids, and I always, I'd go hide in the ocean. I feared the ocean less than falling down off of these things, and I thought they were crazy. At the course of time, now that was a famous institution. It's one of the beginnings. There's a plaque there in Santa Monica. It was the beginning of the personal physical fitness, movement, and it's credited as being begun at Muscle Beach in Santa Monica. Yeah.
Well, she was a great swimmer, and she and your dad moved to Leisure World, and she was their paid lifeguard for 25 years. 25 years, and she rescued how many people? A lot of people?
A couple dozen, I think.
Oh.
They finally made her retire, and then also she retired from the synchronized swimming, which for 22 years she never missed a show, and she was the star of most of the shows because of her hearing. To hear underwater, the underwater speakers in order to synchronize, you know. But they had the synchronized swimming, and she was very, very famous for that.
So she was was she about 85 when she stopped being the lifeguard there?
Yes, she stopped when she was 85 years of age, that's right. As far as we know, she was the oldest certified woman lifeguard in the United States, as far as we know, yeah.
So she did these wonderful synchronized swimming productions with music and costumes, and they were
yes, they sold
quite
their own
lovely.
costumes. It's still going. It's called the Aquadettes. They still produce it. The National Enquirer did a story on them one time, and Mom called me, and I went to she said, go over and get a National Enquirer. So I go over to the market, and there's a young clerk there, and I said, do you have last week's National Enquirer? And he looks around, he says, no, they always sell out. And he says, why? I said, well, my mom is featured in that. And he looks at me and he says, if my mom were featured in that rag, I would never tell anybody.
You cared for your mother for 12 years
Yes.
until she died of Alzheimer's
That's
at
correct.
101.
And a half.
And when you began, did you dream that you would be doing it for such a long period of time?
I didn't even think of that. I just knew that I had to do it. My one sister had died. My other sister was a nun and still very active. And I was at retirement age. And so I said, well, I'm going to retire. We'll build a house up in the Sierras, because I had some astronomy friends that said the area would be just great and be very safe for her. We built the house, and I was able to keep her alive for 10 years up there. The first 2 years I had to keep her down in the priest house with us until our house was built. And when we moved up there, the doctor said she won't live very long, but I did all the cooking for her, which she taught me to do, and she was a great cook, and all fresh vegetables and everything, and the doctor said I kept her alive for 10 years up there, just because of the care I took of her.
It was a happy time up there.
It was challenging
for her,
but it was very happy. We were always together, we'd go all around town. Everyone in town knew her, and then at a church they knew her. I was afraid she'd be very lonesome up there, but we made a lot of friends, and just everybody knew her.
Well, did things change after a while? Did the effort become
yes,
more difficult?
yes. Her first few years she improved, and then she went downhill again with the senile dementia, which at the very end turned into Alzheimer's, and that's what really just stopped it. She just stopped eating, and her body just quit. I mean,
did you have anyone helping you at that time?
Yes, I had.
Care
even when she was at Leisure World toward the end there, I had part-time caretakers, but I was the primary caretaker all that time. Yeah, and it worked. And now that I look back, I'm very, very happy about that. People would tell me that their memory of us together all the time was there is a loving son who takes care of his mother. And the way they would tell me that a lot of times was, I wonder who's going to take care of me. You know, people, we all worry about that. Yeah.
Describe a typical day for the two of you together.
Each day was different.
Was
We'd
it
always
really?
have different places to go. I'd always bring her with me everywhere, even over to the Indian reservation. We'd be driving over there, and I go, woo, Mom and said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, that's where we're going now, you know." And I said, "You better be good, or you're going to end up without any hair there, you know." But yeah, they really loved her over there. They gave her a great tribute. In fact, they wanted my mom to be buried in their Indian cemetery. They loved her so much.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
But we ended up burying her with Dad. Yeah.
Well, now I've seen videos of you working puzzles with her
Yes.
and taking little lemonade to her, and you gave her a lot, not just physical care, but a lot of mental attention and time.
Yes,
that you
we had her
gave
working
her.
on puzzles and everything to keep her mind going. That's what you do, yeah. I found it, see? I knew red and then this blue thing here, that's what you do. See?
Well, I've got some red.
Yeah, well, yeah, not only red, but yeah, okay. How you doing there, Mom? Okay. You're doing all right. Yeah, why don't you just sit down and relax. Railroad yard, yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. How could it be so beautiful? Where's Ron?
I'm right here, Mom.
Where did you go?
I'm right here, Mama.
There's Steve.
Look at the pictures, Mama.
Aren't they beautiful?
They're pretty nice, Mama.
That's my head.
This is Mama's wedding picture. Look at right there.
That's right. And there's my head.
That's right.
And
Nice,
there's
Mama.
there's my son and my daughter and me.
That's right, Mama.
Oh my God. It's not possible.
Not possible. And we had an exercise bike that even till just before the final hospitalization in the nursing home that I had to put her in at the end, she was able to ride that bike. I built a swimming pool for her, of course, because she was a great championship swimmer. She swam in that for a couple of years. There again, she knew her limitations. She was afraid she was getting in and out. She was getting very weak in the legs and everything. And so there again, she says, "No more swimming for me." So I'd go swimming, and she would sit there. And I said, "Now, Mom, you're my lifeguard," as if she could help me. But anyway, that made her feel good.
Yes.
I don't want to go in.
I know you don't. I don't want to go in either.
Huh?
But we have to, Mama.
What?
We have to. We have to go in, Mama.
Oh my God, it's
It's
cold.
cold. Oh,
It's cold.
it's warm for me. After you come out and you get back in, it's warm.
Oh my,
Come
oh
on,
my
Mom. I
God,
gotta
it's
get
cold.
back in. I gotta get in. It's funny. Now I'm warm.
It's cold.
Come on. Here we go.
It's cold.
Come on. Just scream, Mama. Just scream. Oh, there you go, Mama. Oh,
It's cold.
that's good. Come on. That's,
Oh, it's cold.
oh, oh,
Get out of here.
oh, here we go. There she goes. There she goes. Whoa. There she goes. Come on, let's go the other end. I'll race you. I'll race you. Let's go. Did you feel the shark?
Yes, and I didn't like it. Get
Why
out of my
not?
way.
Oh boy, she's getting mean.
What was the most difficult part during that time of caring for her? Because we all know it's not easy.
Toward the end, when I had to get her in and out of the wheelchair, see, we built our house completely to handicap code, 1 story, no steps. And then toward the end, I had to even move her around in the house in the wheelchair. Her legs just wouldn't support her anymore. Those last few months were the hardest on me. And right now I'm nursing a sore shoulder from the times I had to lift her alone when the caretaker wasn't there and things like that. That was very, very difficult. And then she was pretty well out of it. She didn't realize really what was going on. Most of the time she didn't know who I was. She only knew when I wasn't there, if I'd step outside or something like that. And she really was terrified of being left alone, and we really didn't leave her alone hardly at all. You know.
Well, that's one of the things to consider when we're taking care of these people we love is we do get hurt sometimes trying to lift them and so forth.
Yes,
and so.
it's very difficult. It is, yes.
Well, did you ever wonder what you'd gotten yourself into?
I didn't think about it. I thought I had to do it. And I loved my parents. My parents were just so great for me and everything. I just loved them. Yeah.
Well, you must have counseled many people during your career about what to do with their parents and how to cope with them. What kinds of advice can you give to people about making choices?
Always involve them in the family. I think the young people have a lot to learn from their grandparents and to keep them within the family. Unfortunately, nowadays, that doesn't seem to be happening. And I think the young people are losing out on an awful lot.
I agree with you. When I brought my mother to live with me, I tried to integrate her into my life, you know.
Yes.
And I wish I had just sat with her and talked about, you know, her parents, her old days, and given her that pleasure instead of trying to make her hit the pace that I was hitting, and it might have given me a lot more too. So those are things that can be taught to people who are making these decisions.
I just
There's a lot to
talking
gain.
to my grandparents all the time, and I just love to talk to them, and you learn so much wisdom. I mean, there's 2 ways of handling life. Either you learn the hard way by not listening to anybody else, or you listen to people who have been there, done that, you know.
Well, if you sum up your entire experience of taking care of your mother those 12 years, what will you say to us?
You'll be richly rewarded for all the care that you shower upon them. Sure, it's a challenge, but I tell you, once they're gone, the thing you would most regret is that you didn't spend more time with your elderly parents or people that you're taking care of. A funny thing develops there. When I was taking care of Mom toward the end, it was like take care of a child. She couldn't really do much of anything for herself. And I thought, well, once she dies and she's gone, I'll be free. It doesn't work that way. It was, I had gotten into such a routine of caring for her that when she was gone, I didn't feel free at all. I felt real loss. I mean, real deep loss, which I still feel today.
Thank you for coming to
Well,
tell
you're
us
certainly
about your
welcome.
mother.
Okay,
It's been
all
a
right,
pleasure.
thank you.
Look at the water there.
Pretty in here, Mamas. Very pretty in here. want this one?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
easier.
All right. That's the way it is. All right. Well, remember when we used to go to Sequoia and the giant forest? Well, now you're in the mini giant forest. Are you okay? All right, there you go. There she is.